Large cappuccino. Orders up. All right, and welcome back. So today we have a super special episode. Today we have a guest. David Lucas has come to join us, and it's super special to me because he was my teammate at Penn State. So for those of you who are tuning in for the first time or kind of listening to a first episode, so my background, I ran at Penn State. When did I graduate? 2019, I guess. Wow, yeah, it's been a while. But David Lucas was my teammate throughout the 4 years at Penn State. So super special to have him on the show today and to kind of hear a little bit more about his background. So I know I tend to speak on the running side of things when it comes to track, but you did not do running. Oh my gosh, that was really loud.
Why was it so loud, Fran? What do you have on your hand?
Oh yes, I did wear my rings today, which you also have a ring on.
I did. I wore my my national championship ring. We'll get into that.
A little bit bigger than mine.
A little bit.
But yeah, had to kind of deck out in Penn State stuff to represent. But yeah, so I will kind of let you introduce yourself, what you did, and kind of get started with it.
Sure. Appreciate you having me on, Fran. First things first, my name's David Lucas, Penn State alum. Fran and I both came into college at Penn State back in 2015, whereas Fran did the appropriate thing and graduated in 4 years' time. I decided to stay for all of 6 years.
Hey, just want to enjoy the experience, you know?
Yeah, just come on back for another round. Why not?
Why not?
It was old man season, grandpa season, just keep running it back.
Yep.
But no, so I was a thrower at Penn State. I threw shot put, discus, hammer throw, and weight throw, kind of all 4 disciplines except javelin. We see at the collegiate level, often folks will either specialize in the javelin throw or they'll do other throwing event disciplines. I was in the latter category. But yeah, so Penn State athlete for the last 2015 to 2021 was when I graduated my master's, and have been out in the adult world, competing professionally for the last 3 years and working full time. Yeah,
you got a lot of stuff going on now, and I know it's crazy because so many people, so many of our like teammates, not too many of them are like still in the sport. So like that's crazy to see, and super cool that you're still continuing with it and still kind of taking that path, which is awesome.
No, it's been fun. It definitely provides another level of challenge. Whereas I think you're in college, you can sometimes get you can get caught up in like the day to day of like you're in class, you're at practice, you're at home doing schoolwork, and you're like, oh my gosh, I'm so busy. Yeah. You get out into the adult world and it's like, all right, cool. You're going to go work an adult job from, 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then you're going to go practice from 6 p.m. to 9 p.m. at night. Ugh. And then come home and try to do the other adult things of eat and like
take care of yourself,
take care of yourself, do laundry.
Yeah, right.
It's definitely a different dynamic, but one that definitely took some reps in order to better learn how to manage that.
Yeah, for sure. And we'll definitely kind of get to what you're doing now and kind of what life looks like now. But coming from that throws side, so where did you kind of start out in sports? Like as a kid, like where were you kind of going? Like middle school, high school, like how did you get into throws, I guess?
Sure. So for me growing up, like the prototypical sports that you play as a guy, playing your football, your baseball. I played a little soccer. Ended up jumping into track and field in 7th grade.
Okay.
At that point, I was gung-ho on playing football, and track was just kind of an avenue to do something to stay active in the springtime, because I had football in the fall, I had wrestling in the winter, and then I would have track in the spring.
Yeah, gotta have 3 sports.
You gotta have 3
seasons.
Well, it's staying busy. It's trying to stay active. I don't know if my parents are just trying to keep me out of the house or what. I was a little problem child at times. But my focus within track and field really came about after having a handful of concussions from playing football, and I got red flagged from contact sports. For those who don't know what that means, I had 3 concussions in 1 calendar year. Which led me having to see like a pediatric neurologist, and they basically said, hey man, like love that you like sports, but you can't play anything with contact anymore. Wow. So I ended up moving towards putting my focus in towards track and field. Started out as a runner, just doing a short sprints, 100, 200, 400.
Quickly learned that was not the way to go.
Well, it's interesting. So I did short sprints all throughout high school.
Okay.
And 1, 2, and 4, I was decent. For the record, I just want to make this very clear. I was a 225-pound senior, and I ran 11 flat in 100 meters.
Hey, all right.
So that's linebacker speed right there, as far as anyone is concerned.
You're cooking for sure.
But no, got into track, did sprints, and then moved into throws a little bit come my end of 7th grade year. Mm-hmm. I think I was on the track. We were doing block starts.
Yeah.
And just looked up back on the hill. The way our track is set up, we basically have the track on the main level, and then up on a little bit of a hill, we have the throwing area. Mm-hmm. Up on there, I'm in here doing block starts, making my way down. I look back on the hill, and I see there's a bunch of people up there throwing stuff. Mm-hmm. And being the cocky 7th grader that I was, I said, I can throw further than you. I can throw further than you. So I went up and gave it a try, and ended up having a little bit of a natural knack for it.
Yeah.
It kind of clicked, and I was like, oh, this is actually kind of fun.
For sure.
So started doing throws. That was discus and shot put at that time. Mm-hmm. And continued on with doing disc, shot, and then short sprints, middle school, and then into high school.
Yeah. Okay. Wow. Yeah, no, that's interesting too, having that background with football and then having to be like told that you can't continue.
Yeah.
I know a lot of athletes throughout many different sports sometimes unfortunately face that for whatever reasons they can't continue with their sport. Would you, like, if thinking back to it, if you could have, would you have probably stuck with football over track? Like, was that kind of like your first love in sports, or were you kind of just indifferent and it was like, oh, well, I guess I'll find something else? I
think I kind of had a little level of indifference. I love football. Mm-hmm. I had a really great time with it. It's something that I stayed in really good shape from doing it. You're a middle school kid. Like, you're getting your energy out, you're hitting people, you're having fun doing it.
Yeah.
Which is what football is at that point, really.
Mm-hmm.
It's learning basic fundamentals and skill sets and trying to have some fun along the way.
Yeah.
For me, though, when football got pulled away from me, yes, it's disappointing, but I was also so young, and just, you're very adaptable at that age. And I'm like, all right, well, let me try something else.
Yeah.
My old man did track and field in high school, and then for just all throughout high school, we did track and field. My mom was a thrower, did track and field in high school.
Nice. Okay.
So I was like, all right, cool. I'll give it a shot.
Yeah.
And it ended up going pretty well. Started having some early successes with it. Mm-hmm. And I was like, all right, cool. I found a space where I'm enjoying it. I'm having fun. I had really good coaches. And having a little level of success early on especially is a huge weight. It makes up and sticky, and you want to stay with it. For
sure, yeah. I mean, that's something that I can relate to too. Like, I didn't start running. Well, I did run in 8th grade, but that was like a social time for me. Like, that was not something that I was really trying for. But basically, my freshman year of high school is when I like took it seriously, and I actually enjoyed like running and getting started like in the track season. But I too also kind of had that experience of like a lot of success early on, and it just kind of makes you like, oh, I'm good at something, I'm gonna stick with it. Like, this is cool. Like, I get to see a lot of success, and I get to see my progress quickly almost. And so kind of going throughout high school, when did you realize that like you really wanted to continue and take it to the next level?
Oh, that's a great question. I think for me, that kind of moment, I think, was getting to compete at Penn Relays.
Yeah.
It was a very different environment. A lot of your track and field meets you have, for context, and many of you may already know this, but within track and field, a lot of your games, they're just a dual meet. It's one team against another team. You bring the majority of your entire team with you to the track. The 100 meters would have 12 heats, 15 heats of kids running 100-meter dash. You'd start out with some of your fastest heats, and then next thing you know, you've got,
it takes like an hour and a half just to do those. Yeah.
So we'd start out with that, and it's a very different dynamic. But when you get to Penn Relays, the running events are all in University of Pennsylvania's Coliseum.
Yes.
You have all the lights on you, all the fans cheering. The culture and the environment is so different there.
So different, yeah.
Within throws, they have this whole sector and area outside of the Coliseum where fans are kind of surrounding you. You're very encompassed in a different environment and atmosphere. And I performed well there at that meet. And that was kind of a little bit of a switch of like, okay, maybe there's something to this. It's more than just, I'm going to go get on a school bus and go ride 20 minutes to the neighboring school, go to their track, run a race or two, and then get back on the school bus and go home.
Yeah.
There was more to the sport. So that started to flip the switch for me, getting into an environment like that, which I'm very fortunate for. And then I kind of progressed into wanting to compete at a higher and higher level.
Yeah. When did you end up going to Penn Relays?
I was junior and senior year. I was at Penn Relays.
Oh, okay.
Sophomore year, the highest level I think I got to was like I got to compete at like districts, which districts was awesome. That was at Shippensburg University at Pennsylvania, which we're very fortunate where our district meet is held at the same venue that the state meet is held at.
Oh, nice. Okay.
You get a level of preparation. You get comfortable in the environment. For throwers especially, every ring that you throw in is not always the same. Some rings are faster, some are slower, it's a different setup. It can be a different component mentally, but also physically.
Yeah.
So, it's still an 8'2" ring, whether it's here in Ohio, whether it's out in Pennsylvania or on the West Coast. Yeah. But the environment itself is very different. So getting exposure to that was awesome to then come back in through junior and senior year and perform well.
Yeah, yeah. Because definitely even like on the track side of it too, I tend to talk about it as like getting that experience before. Like if you're going to where typically the state meet is held and you're going there for like a dual meet or like for a different invitational, like that's great to get that exposure like early on, just because same thing with like the circle. It's like, 400 meters is still going to be 400 meters no matter where you go, but like different tracks feel different and like stadiums feel different depending on where you're at with that. So that's really cool. When I went to Penn Relays, that's when I was like, oh wow, like this is pretty cool, because that stadium's amazing.
The stadium's different. I think moreover than just the stadium is the culture is different. Everyone that's there is a track and field fan. It's not just moms and dads of the athletes.
Yeah.
You have spectators and fans that are there watching you. And for a lot of athletes, for the first time in their life, they're actually feeling like that football player, where they're out on Friday night lights and they have an audience and a crowd and people are cheering for them. You have a roar of a stadium, which is something that a lot of track and field athletes in middle school, high school, they don't get that exposure to.
Yeah.
So getting to compete at that level is like, it's almost eye-opening.
Yes, for sure. Yeah. I remember like being there and just like the roar of the crowd. And yeah, you're right. Like everyone there is just a fan of the sport. And so the culture around it, like everyone just loves just being there.
Yes.
And it makes it a totally different experience for sure. But yeah, so as you kind of progress throughout high school and like junior, senior year, you're starting to kind of look towards that college side of things. What was your recruiting process kind of like? Because I know that gets brought up a lot with my athletes of like, when does it start, or like, who should I talk to, and like, how does a process look like? And I can always speak on like my personal experience, but every athlete has a different experience with it. So how was your recruiting process?
First of all, I'll give a shout out to my dad in all of this, because my dad has been in sales his whole life, has been in marketing his whole life. And what I've come to see a lot in the space is that in track and field, you need to self-market yourself in order to gain exposure. My dad figured that out quickly, put together a recruiting website for me.
Wow.
Where he was running a blog post on what I was doing, competitions, weight room numbers, extracurriculars outside of it. I was in Boy Scouts, I'm an Eagle Scout. Like, being able to show the holistic view of who
Yep.
I was as not just an athlete, but as a person, because that's a massive factor for these colleges when they are recruiting athletes.
Yeah.
So my recruiting process was a lot of outreach to coaches, especially earlier on. There are certain time windows, and I don't know what they all are right now, on when coaches can start contacting you, but you're able to start contacting and like sending messages out to coaches earlier than that.
Yes.
So we would start sending emails. My dad would like make like 1-pagers of like a flyer highlighting like, here are some stats about me on like what I've done, who I am, what I'm involved in outside of sport. So we would start that outreach earlier on, and that kind of led to building some traction, doing some like feats of athleticism. Like I dunked a 12-pound shot put. Like I just took like one step in, took a 12-pound shot, jumped up to a 10-foot basketball hoop and dunked it.
Wow. Yeah. I
And
mean,
put it on YouTube
why
and
not?
sent it out to coaches, and they
Yeah.
all looked at it, and I started getting responses from coaches that I hadn't heard anything from before.
nice. Okay.
So I sent that out, and then Tennessee reached out to me after I sent the video.
Hey.
We sent the video out to them. So kind of went through that process, had a handful of unofficial visits, took my full 5 official visits, which you get.
Yep.
I went to Tennessee, UNC, Penn State, Iowa State, and Michigan.
Nice. Oh, I went to Michigan too.
Michigan was fun.
Yeah.
As much as I really enjoyed Michigan, I took my visit in September, and it snowed. So
Mine was like late October, and there's a lot of snow up there, and I'm like,
it was a little cold for me. I mean, I'm a
Yeah.
Pennsylvania boy, born and raised, but still with the cold of Michigan, I was like, I don't know if I could do this
Yeah.
level of cold all the time.
for sure.
So then came down to, I was looking at Tennessee, UNC, and Penn State were kind of sitting in my top bracket. And then ended up making my way towards Penn State for a handful of reasons, but Penn State was my top pick at the end of the day.
Yeah, I mean, being from Pennsylvania too, I feel like Penn State just
Doesn't
kinda
hurt. It doesn't hurt when you're when you
you're
got
in
family
state.
who are an alum there,
Yeah.
and it's well known.
For sure.
The advice that I'd always give to athletes that are going through the recruiting process and they're looking into where they're going to college, one, pick a place that feels like home.
Yep. 100%.
It's almost like a feeling that you get. I know it sounds weird, and it's this like, ooh, thinking about it's a feeling, but it
It's
is
so true.
It is true.
Yeah.
It's a feeling of comfort. It's a feeling of peace. It's a feeling of I see myself here for the next 4 years. The other thing within athletes is that pick a school that if your athletic career were to end and you were unable to continue in your sport, pick a school that you would be proud to go to.
Yeah, that's a good way to look at it too. Because I know as an athlete, this kind of gets brought up a lot too. But at some point, we all have to face that retirement in our sport too. And so recognizing that you're more than just your sport is like really, really crucial. Even as like a younger athlete, like in high school and getting into college, it's like, yeah, like your sport does take up most of your time, and we tend to identify ourselves as athletes because that's just what we do 24/7
Correct.
pretty much. But there is life after it, and even being an athlete, there's other things that kind of go into your identity. So yeah, I definitely I do mention a lot to like being able to not just go to a school for your sport, but like academics wise, because I remember our coach, Coach Tucker, he used to tell us like you're a student-athlete.
Yes.
And when you hang up the spikes, you have a degree left that you can still use. All your trophies collect dust on on the walls, but he like really emphasized that academic side. And so that's kind of like a good way to look at it too, is if you're not competing as an athlete or for some reason athletics doesn't work out at a school, do you still like being there, or do you still like being in the atmosphere?
I think it'll drive home the point of, you'll have a much better experience overall throughout your time as a student athlete if you're proud to go there just as a student.
Right.
If you check both those boxes, I think you're going to have a good experience. Because in our sport, it's track and field. Let's take this with a grain of salt. You're putting your bodies on the line. Sure. Okay, quote unquote. To a degree, yes.
Yeah.
I have had a series of injuries that have put me to points of like questions of like potentially being paralyzed.
Ugh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think I've told all of those, but within that, the sport can be taken away from you very quickly. Overuse injuries, not necessarily like, oh, you were in a car crash like you're a football player, but overuse, compounding, when you're in a weight room and you're putting 500 pounds on your back every single day for 4, 5, 6+ years, there's an effect that has.
For sure.
And the sport can quickly be taken away from you. So still being proud of where you're at and where your feet are is, that's the biggest thing I can ever communicate to someone who's looking at exploring their options is pick somewhere that you want to be as a regular student. And then athletics is just a huge bonus on top of it.
For sure. Yeah. But I do relate to that other point that you said of like picking a place that feels like home, because I went on a couple visits to Michigan, Indiana. I did a couple like in Ohio State schools, Kent, and I can't remember some of them.
Those college coaches are gonna be so mad at you right now for getting that one coach.
But I know like Big Ten wise, I was looking at Michigan, Indiana, and Penn State, and I went to Indiana, and I was kind of like, okay, like I could kind of see myself here. Michigan was a little bit cold, and as a runner, we have to run outside, so I was like, maybe not. But Penn State, I actually took an unofficial visit. I didn't kind of spend a weekend. I just went up for the day, and as soon as I got on campus, it's like that feeling of, oh my gosh, like this is perfect. Like I see myself here just driving around campus. I'm like, it just clicks. And I do like to talk about like that moment, because I feel like a lot of people end up having that moment of, oh, it just fits.
Yes.
So, but that's really, really cool too. What, so going through the recruiting process, which I'm curious if it's kind of similar to what mine was, like, because I know being in the same year. So when we were in high school, was it college coaches couldn't talk to you until after your junior year? Was that the same for you?
It was after the end of your junior year. It was, I don't know if it was in June or sometime like in June or July.
1st.
Maybe July 1st. That sounds familiar.
Yeah.
They could start reaching out to you.
Okay, yeah, because I know now that has changed.
It's now like 2 years now. It's like after your sophomore year, they can start contacting you.
Yeah.
Which presents a whole nother host of things coaches and athletes are trying to navigate and figure out.
Right. Yeah, and that definitely puts a different spin on someone's recruiting process, because for us, it was a little bit shorter. Like you pretty much had your senior year to talk to coaches, figure out where you want to go, and get it all set up. But now kids have like a 2-year window where they can talk to coaches and figure it out.
But also the coach is contacting you for the first time on let's say July 1.
Yeah.
Official visits start in like end of August, beginning of September. So you have a very short window to vet your coaches, vet these schools, and then commit certain weekends to go out and say, all right, I'm going to leave school on a Thursday, a Friday, Saturday, I'm going to be gone at this university, and then come back, and then come end of the year, January, basically, you would have to be signing and saying, I'm committed. So you have like a 6-month window for coaches to reach out to you, for you to then visit and then figure out, where do I want to spend the next 4 years and potentially spend a lot of your money to go there. Yeah. So it definitely looked a little bit different for us. Did you also did you commit early in your senior year? Yeah. Okay. So I think I ended up signing my national letter of intent in November. Yeah. Same. And then we had the whole formal signing ceremony with everyone else in like January or February. Yeah. I think that's when like the national NIL signing day is. Yeah. So like the school put on like a whole little thing, and we had like 7 athletes from my high school who all were signing. Yeah. And we just all did it on that day.
Okay. Yeah. Yes. Same with mine. Like I signed early in November, and then I had like the day at school, which was just me actually.
Okay. Lone Star. All right.
Later on in the year, there was another athlete that signed, but But yeah, so okay, so we've had pretty similar recruiting processes, but so getting into college. So a big thing that a lot of my high school athletes talk about, I think everybody tends to have that dream of going Division I and like being that star and like being on those big teams and all of that, getting that like big experience in their sport. But it looks all sunshine and rainbows on the outside, and you get there and it's a lot of work that you have to go through.
It is.
But what is your opinions on like that difference between high school training and then getting to that Division I level? What training and like what the day-to-day life kind of looks like?
Okay. So for me in my high school training, I would work with like a personal coach every Sunday. His name is Glenn Thompson. He's one of the best throws coaches, in my opinion, in the entire country. I would work with him every Sunday for like a 2-hour session. And it didn't matter if it was rain, sleet, snow, whatever it was. I would work with him for 2 hours. We would throw a shot for an hour, discus for an hour. And then throughout the week, though, you know, I give a lot of props to a lot of high school coaches. But a lot of high school throws coaches aren't coaching at an elite level.
Right.
These are people that are pretty much volunteering their time to come help out high school kids in a sport and be able to help support them.
Yeah, especially on a track team. I mean, you get a lot of people going out for a track team, so you need a lot of coaches to supervise, but a lot of them end up being like teachers on the side that come out. And so
you're not a high school coach as a full-time job.
Yeah.
You're not. No. So I had a lot of my practices then Monday through Friday were very self-led. And working with that coach, I'm like, here are the things I'm working on from my time working with my coach on Sunday.
Right.
And it was a little bit of a different dynamic, whereas other athletes who weren't in that same position, who were just trying to make a spot to compete on the county championship team. You know, which is like, you know, we've got 10 schools and we're going to all go compete at our league meet. They were there just trying to get a little bit better. And the coach was able to help them with that. Whereas, you know, I had a point where my high school coach looked at me and said, I really got nothing I can help you with. Like, can you tell me what you're working on and I'll try to see if I see it.
Right.
And it takes a lot of also emotional maturity for a coach to be able to recognize that and say that, because these are grown adult men and women who are like being very vulnerable to say, I don't know the answers here, but I'll try to help you however I can.
You the high school kid, tell me what to do.
Exactly.
Kind of thing.
For the training then, so it was very self-led. I maybe would take, you know, 15, 20 throws, nothing crazy exuberant, but I wasn't making a lot of growth. My sessions on Sundays were really hard, and we did a lot of work on a lot of things. And then Monday through Friday was just trying to maintain it and then come back on Sunday for more growth.
Yeah.
You go to college, and that hard 2-hour session I had turns into a hard 4-hour session every single day. So the tempo that you have to move at, the intensity that you're moving at, and you're now going from being, you know, the big fish in a small pond in your high school world to now you are a small fish in a very big pond. At that college level, everyone's a state champion. Everyone was a state medalist. Everyone was competing at New Balance Nationals.
Everybody had the New Balance bags.
Everyone had the New Balance bags. Everyone had it because everyone's at that level. So now you are coming in as one of the lower tier people competing and training with people who have been doing this for 3-4 years ahead of you, who are seniors, 5th-year seniors, who are much stronger, much faster, much more capable, and you're coming in there as you know, having
18-year-old.
As an 18-year-old, you got the red carpet rolled out for you coming in as a freshman, and you very quickly find out that, oh, I'm at the bottom of the food chain. And if I want to get my way up there, it takes a lot of work in order to bridge that gap, and that's a really hard reality for a lot of athletes to come to acceptance with, for one, and then two, to be able to make a change and be able to start working up towards that level.
I talk about that so much, is like you're coming out of high school as that big fish in a little pond, like you are a big superstar, and now you're on a team with superstars that have been doing this for a while, and And like even in my experience, like that whole fall season of like training with cross country, I was coming from very much like a sprinter background. I only did the 2 and the 4 in high school.
You did.
And so like,
and then quickly you were mid D and then
yeah,
distance.
and they threw me right into cross country, and I was last in every workout. Like coming from an environment where I'm like working out with the guys team, and I'm like working out with like
you were
coming in
beating the
first.
guys in races.
Yeah.
That's what it was.
Yeah, and then you come into college, and now you're, like you said, bottom of the food chain, and you have to be able to sink or swim in that situation. And I've definitely seen people fall on both sides of it. Some people couldn't kind of handle like that big bigger stage or being in that environment, and then obviously some of us kind of made it work, and we had the right mentality behind it. How did you kind of cope with like that freshman year, getting adjusted to that freshman sophomore year, getting adjusted in that environment?
Well,
Story time.
story time.
Yeah.
I mean, I think I adjusted well within my world of athletics.
Yes. Yeah.
I think I suffered greatly in my world of academics.
Because another thing that people like don't always look at in the big picture is you're not just there for sports, but you're also like, for the first time, you're moved out of your house, you're living on your own. It's your own accountability to go to classes and just to take care of yourself as a whole person. So it's not just like that athletic side of getting adjusted, but the whole college experience getting adjusted.
High school seniors, you don't know how to study. I'm telling you right now, you do not know how to study correctly.
No, you don't. Yeah.
It's so different.
So different.
I think I was fortunate enough where I was smart enough to be able to do the minimum amount of work possible to get good grades. I could, you could look at your notes for 5 minutes before an exam, get a B, get an A, and you're fine. That's all I need.
Yeah.
You get to college and you look at your notes for 5 minutes before a midterm, and you will be so sad.
Especially because
be so sad.
Oh man, yeah.
It's very humbling very quickly because you think you know how to study. And as 18-year-olds, we all thought we knew everything.
Yep.
I know the world. My parents can't tell me anything. I'm on top of it.
Yeah.
And then you go to college, and then you get your butt kicked really fast, and you learn, I need to figure a lot of stuff out in a very short period of time.
Yeah.
So my academics suffered. I finished my freshman year with a 1.8 GPA.
Oof. Yep.
And had a very real sit-down conversation with my head coach, with my academic advisor for athletics, my academic advisor from Penn State, to talk about what do I need to do in order to be able to
keep going,
stay at Penn State, not even just as an athlete, but to stay as a student.
Yeah.
And I had to take summer classes, and I had to change my major, and I had to totally reorient and regear, and spend a lot of time working with a lot of smart people to try to figure out, okay, how does David learn? And what can I do better to set myself up for success?
Yeah.
Because I knew, and everyone in my corner was telling me, you're more than capable of doing this, but you're not applying yourself in a way that's most effective for you to get this done.
Yeah.
And so how can we tweak? How can we pivot? How can we address these things? And then came out and had, greater academic success. I'm proud to say I graduated above a 3.0.
Yep.
All right, I did. It took 5 years, but I got above a 3.0.
But we got there. Yeah.
But it was like consistently making Dean's List there afterwards.
Yeah.
But that transition, very different.
Yes.
So whether it's athletics, academics, life, having to do your own laundry. So my mother did my laundry in high school.
Same.
I didn't do my own laundry.
Yep.
Very fortunate. Shout out to Mom.
Yeah.
But it is a very different experience to now. You need to feed yourself. You need to wash your own clothes. And it sounds so basic and so simple to now being a 28-year-old adult.
Right, yeah.
Looking back at it of like, yeah, that's just what you do.
Yeah, that's what you do.
But you're an 18-year-old as a freshman in college, and you go from small town USA to a campus with tens of thousands of people there.
So many people, yeah.
And so many opportunities to do a lot of great things, but also a lot of really bad things too.
Yep. And you're in control of
And you're in
making
control
those
of it.
decisions.
You have no curfew.
Yeah.
You have no one asking you where you're at and what you're doing. You could be out until 3 a.m. and no one's going to come tell you that's a bad idea.
Right.
You're going to have to learn your consequences.
To practice, no
Yes.
one's really.
If you're at practice on time,
you're doing what you need to.
You're
there.
golden.
Yeah.
But the candle burns at both ends of the stick really fast.
Yes. Yeah. And so I know like that's a big just lifestyle change for people. Yeah. Like regardless of if you're in athletics or not, like that's a big lifestyle change, like getting there. And I know like for myself too, my freshman year, it was just a lot of adjustments, especially being out of state. So for anybody who's looking to go like farther away from home and you can't always make those weekend trips home, like that also just changes a lot, especially once we got into season in the spring. Like every weekend we're traveling and we're going, and so from Christmas break until track season ends in June, like I don't really see my parents unless they come up for an off weekend that maybe we have. But
exactly, it's you got to take advantage of the time that you have, and that's the other little nugget I'll throw to anyone who is these high school seniors looking at competing in sport in college. Appreciate your parents, appreciate your family, appreciate your friends, because life will change very quickly once you get to college.
Yep.
And you go from seeing your family every single day to you see them every couple of months.
Right. Yeah.
And it's not easy.
Yeah. Adulthood hits really, really fast.
Yeah.
So
there's a huge amount of change within that space, but it's also a really great opportunity to learn more about yourself.
Discover who you are.
Because, who you are living at home with your parents, 17, 18 years old, is not necessarily who you're going to be when you're 24, 28, 35, 40, 50. Right. It's very, very different. So,
for sure.
Stick to who you are and what you believe, but you'll be presented with a lot of opportunity to figure out who you are more so.
For sure.
And be challenged a lot in order to grow.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, and kind of getting back to the athletic side of things too, I know like being at Penn State, I very much had the mindset of, even though everyone there's a superstar athlete and everyone's like really great and you're coming in at kind of the bottom rung, I was like, wow, like this is such a great opportunity for me to like learn from these people who are national champs, and like learn from these people who have Big Ten medals and who have been there. And it didn't so much, I mean, maybe the first couple weeks I would have said it intimidated me a little bit.
Sure. I think it intimidated all of us.
Right, yeah. But as you kind of like get into it, and even like after freshman year, you kind of go around the block once and you come back sophomore year, you kind of know what you're doing. It was so exciting to just be in that environment of like, hey, we're all here to like do really great things. And I know sophomore year was a really big year for women's track and field indoors and men's track and field outdoors.
That it was.
2017, women won indoors and men won outdoors.
Men won outdoors.
Yeah.
Men won their very first Big Ten team title, 2017 Outdoor Track and Field Championships.
Yeah. So what was that? Because I know I've talked plenty of times on how the indoor season went for the women's team, but what was that like for the men's team and for you to kind of experience that first Big Ten win outdoors?
I mean, for me personally, obviously, it's an experience like no other. When you're winning a team, not just an individual, because individual is awesome, but they're doing it with a group of people.
Team? Oh my gosh.
It's amazing.
Goosebumps. Yep.
Literally, because we talk about it throughout the entire year, and so much of the focus is around, what are we working towards? And we're working towards building towards a team that will be competitive enough to go chase down a team championship.
Yes.
Because track and field is a very individual sport. You are measured to the hundredth, if not the thousandth of a second, down to the last centimeter.
Centimeters, yep.
And to now be able to still be a team sport, because we're competing as a team for a championship, to be able to check that box when Penn State had never done that before,
right,
you really are cementing yourself in a piece of history there.
Yeah.
So
for sure.
everyone that was there on that day that played a role within that, it was, it's one for the history books.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, yeah, it was an incredible experience. How often do you get to pour a whole like 30-gallon thing of Gatorade down your head coach's back? Like,
Right.
amazing. So much fun.
Yeah. Oh man.
But no, it was incredible. It was a great experience. And also how excited the women also were for the men.
For sure. Yeah.
It wasn't just the men are like, yeah, go us, but everyone was rallied around you.
Yeah.
And we did it at home.
I know. That's the craziest thing. I mean, oh man, like just that year, our women's and our men's team was at its peak. And like for the women to experience that indoors and then for us to kind of carry it into outdoors and then you guys get the outdoor win, it's just like as a team, men and women, what a phenomenal year like 2017 was. But what do you think from a mental performance standpoint? So you talk a lot about how the Big Tens was a very much like a team mindset. You needed everybody to do that, but track and field is also an individual sport.
Very true.
So what was it like for you, like on the mental side? What did you have to do to get your mindset right and to get everybody in the throes together to like kind of go after a big goal like that?
So it's in a similar vein as to what we'll talk about a lot within running events too. It's scrapping for points. So it's where can we place our athletes in order to, it's not just who's chasing down first, second, and third, but who's getting sixth, seventh, and eighth.
Yeah, just the little points matter.
They do. For me, I was the little point guy as a sophomore.
Same.
That was my role.
Yep.
It was, okay, can I go scrap a few points in the hammer throw? Awesome. I was not a great hammer thrower in college.
Yeah.
I was good. I could score points at conference, but I wasn't at the level with hammer throw that I was in discus or that I was in weight throw.
Yeah.
Hammer throw was just an opportunity to get some additional points at conference.
Yeah.
But I still threw shot put there at that meet. I was not a great shot putter in college. I never made a Big Ten final in shot put.
Yeah.
I still threw just under 60 feet, but I didn't score at conference because it takes over 60 feet to even make the final at conference.
Yep.
But I'm still competing in that because, well, for a multitude of reasons. One, it's an opportunity that you might catch a throw.
Yeah.
It might be able to get one extra point.
Right.
Because these conference meets are determined sometimes by whole points, half points, in order to get to that level.
Yeah.
Now and then discus was another one where it's like, dude, go compete. You might have an opportunity to go place top 3 in this game.
Yep. Yeah.
So getting everyone all on the same page with that it doesn't matter how good you are coming into this on the day of the meet. If you are entered into it, everyone's equal on that day.
Yes.
You have a clean slate. It doesn't matter if you are the defending Big Ten champion or you are the true freshman for the first time.
Yeah.
Just scared out of your mind trying to come in there and see if lightning strikes.
Right.
Because it really can strike for anyone. I've seen it happen countless times where someone was not expected to win and walks out on top.
Yep.
So
it all depends on who shows up that day. It doesn't matter what you did before. Things could go wrong. Things could go right. It depends on what you do that day.
Yeah. So from the mental performance side of house, it is you need to perform well enough to get yourself to that meet. But once you're there, it doesn't matter what your mark was. When you transition from high school to college, everyone likes to talk about how good they were in high school. You now have a clean slate. Your dry erase board is completely wiped clean.
Yeah.
You are now writing a new story. So just like in that competition, whether it's Big Tens or your very first meet, you're in there competing. It doesn't matter how good anyone else is. You have to go out and run your race, execute your throw, take your jump, and it could happen for you because that number 1 seed could foul out.
Right.
They could trip. They could tweak something. They could slip at the start. They could false start, and they're no longer in the game.
Right.
And now you
gotta fight for it.
Now you have an opportunity to fight for it.
So that's a really cool thing about track and field is that individual mindset that you need to have of showing up and being like, hey, it could be anybody's day. Because, I mean, no matter the sport too, but so many athletes get so worked up in getting nervous and getting anxious going into, especially, I mean, when you're on the stage of like Big Ten championships or at the national meet, like those are big stages. You're going to be nervous, like going into that for sure, but still being able to remind yourself and like have that mindset of, I need to focus on what I need to do to execute, because it doesn't matter what the person next to me is going to do. They could have a great day, they could have a bad day, but I need to be worried about myself so that I can scrap for points or kind of fight for that.
Absolutely. The adage of run your own race is so true.
Yeah.
At any level of competition, whether you are a seventh grader starting out in the sport for the first time, or you are the 5th year senior at a Power 5 school.
Yeah.
You need to go and execute your own stuff, because at the end of the day, that's all you have control over is your race, your event, your competition.
For sure.
Go get it. Let the environment of the competition lift you up.
Yeah.
And go do it.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, as we kind of start to wrap things up, I do want to talk about your experience after college too.
Sure.
Still going for it, still training, as you are in adult life, having a job and having to kind of figure things out that way. What has been like the most important piece to keep you motivated and to keep you still like going out and trying for it, even after college? Because I mean, you lose a lot of that support system in college, and you kind of have to figure things out as an individual after. So what has been like a big motivator that keeps you going in it?
I think it's going to be unique to everyone individually. For me, it's coming back to, why do you do what you do? I'm a huge proponent of this. If you don't love what you're doing, you need to do something else.
Yeah.
So for me, it was the love for not only being able to compete in the sport and the highs of the highs, but that's always not going to get you through it. It needs to come back to, and we always talk about trust the process, but falling in love with the day-to-day things.
Yes.
How do you count your little wins of the day? Of, hey, I just had the worst day at work that I've ever had, and now my voice is cracked. And now you get to go and practice in your sport as an opportunity, one, for you mentally to be able to have a different break, two, be able to go have a chance at having another win in a totally different area that you maybe have more control over, and coming to find and really enjoy that. I think figuring that out of like, oh, okay, well, how do I track my little wins? How do I have fun with this and have fun with the people I'm doing it with? That would get me up out of bed in the morning to go after it and go get it.
Yeah. And that's hard too, because you're not it's not going to be sunshine and rainbows every day you go out and you train, but you still have to be able to dig down deep and have that mindset of, well, what's something positive I can get out of this? Like, my day sucks. Training's not going great today, but like, hey, at the end of it all, at the very foundation of it, I still love what I do. So I have to be able to find something in this process that is going to get me up and to do it the next day. Because, I mean, that's just how you continue. But
it's the thing I always told myself is that, okay, you're in your 20s right now. If you put this down now, you will not be able to come back to it in your 30s.
True.
You have one chance, which is right now, to go chase this as hard as you possibly can. And if you don't chase it now, you will never have the chance to chase it again. So it put it in almost a little bit of a do or die situation of like, you got to go now or you'll never go again. Your body gets old really quick. And if you step away from the sport for a handful of years, it's exceedingly difficult, if not impossible, to come back from that.
And to come back at the level that you finished at.
This is always going to be a 20-something-year-old who comes in, who is a freak athlete, wildly talented, and surpasses everyone's expectations. It happens every year. We can point to someone who's done that. So take advantage of your health, take advantage of your time, take advantage of your youth while you have the chance. If you want to go chase a big lofty goal like that, you got to go now.
Yeah.
Because you won't be able to go for it in 5 years.
Yeah. True. Yeah. I can personally speak to that because I haven't run in a while, and I tried again this summer, and nope.
It's a really humbling experience, though,
yeah,
right?
It is.
And even just for me taking a few months off and then trying to come back into things it's wildly difficult at that point. And your people that are working and competing with you side by side, those last 3 months, they've all been training and getting better.
Yeah.
So they're advancing, and you're staying in the same point. So chase it while you can.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, do you have any final advice or tips that have kind of gotten you to where you're at today? Like anything that has kind of stood out to you in your journey that you'd like to share with younger athletes?
I think we've dropped a couple of good little nuggets, but one of the things I'll add is that you need to find your support system. Find the people that you love, find the people that, bring you a sense of joy in your life. Because at the end of the day, nothing's worth doing if you're not doing it with people that you love and care about. That's one. Second thing is you need to also have a life outside of all of this. Because it's really easy to be on a one-track mind of, I am an athlete. I am, so-and-so, I'm going to do all these great things. That's fine. But very shortly in 5 years, you may not have that anymore. And you're going to need to have a really difficult time trying to figure out what your new identity is. Yeah. So let your sport be a component of your life, but don't let your sport be your sole identity. Yeah. You are much more than your athletic career. Everyone around you is a unique and complex individual, just like you. Figure out what you enjoy outside of your sport, outside of that. Passion project, play guitar. I've played guitar since I was 12.
Hobbies.
Hobbies, do something.
Yeah.
Go touch grass. Go have fun while you're doing it and enjoy the process, because sport won't be there forever. Yep. But if you can find things that you love to do while going on that journey, it's all the more memories at the end of the day. Yeah. And you're going to look back and say, this was a part of my path, not a totally different phase in my life. This was a part of my journey. Yes. The book continues versus you're closing a book and trying to start fresh. Right. It's a chapter, not a new book.
Yeah. I like that. Probably going to use that.
All right.
But thank you for joining us today and kind of sharing your story and your experience throughout your sport. And I hope everything in the future. What are your next steps? Kind of continuing I know Olympics and trials just kind of happened this summer, but any big things coming up for you in the next year or two?
So I think in the next year and two, I think I'm going to be transitioning more into life outside of sport. Yeah. I alluded to it earlier. I've had a handful of injuries, and I think I'm kind of at a point within my career where I've done a lot of things I'm proud of. I've done a lot of things I'm very happy with. But I'm excited for what that next chapter in my book will be. Yep. And, finding a career now that I found a lot of joy and a lot of love within. Nice. Having people around me that are supportive of that, and taking those steps now, I'm learning to channel the love and the competition and what I gained from sport into other avenues of life. Yeah. And when you figure that out, there's nothing that can stop you.
Yes. Yeah. You learned so many great things through being involved in sports, but it's true for every athlete. At some point you hang up the jersey. At some point life continues, and being able to find or take that passion that you had with your sport and find it in other avenues in life. And again, I like you're not starting a new book, you're starting a new chapter, and you get to kind of almost reinvent and kind of recreate yourself as you grow. So, well, I'm excited to kind of see the next couple things that you do and how things go. And again, thank you for coming on today and sharing your story. And hopefully, if anybody listening has any questions or anything, please leave comments below, or please reach out to us. I'm sure David would love to give some advice or answer some questions, especially anything specific to track and field and throws. So, we'll kind of wrap up for today, and I will see you next time. All right.
If you like what you're listening to, be sure to follow the Athlete Cafe on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube. You can find us wherever you enjoy listening to your podcasts.